Hi, welcome back to True Crime Sages. I'm Tina Cummins. Belinda Powers couldn't be with us tonight. So tonight I have a bit of a pet peeve and I'd like to talk about it. I don't normally call people out on videos they post or anything. I don't get involved in the drama, but I feel the need to say something. A lot of people are very well intentioned, especially when it comes to Delphi homicides and the murder of children. And but recently, with the arrest and prosecution of Kegan Kline that happened in August 2020, he's been incarcerated for some time now, awaiting trial. Someone, not going to say who, posted a video that said, and I quote, "Police allowed sex predator to victimize more children for 3 years." So basically, they're calling out the police department for the way they handled this investigation. Does this person not realize that he was under surveillance, phone, warrants, phone, any kind of social media devices, visual surveillance, tracking, etc., etc. Come on. You really think the police are going to suspect this guy of killing 2 girls and allowing him to just go out and victimize more children? No. And in fact, what the police said was, because of the information they'd received, they have conducted dozens of secondary investigations since they found out this information in February 2017. So let's just put this into a little bit of perspective. Abby and Libby tragically died, but in heroic efforts, Libby recorded her killer. And because she was able to record her killer and the police recovered the phone, they were able to tie into this connection with Anthony Shots in the dark web. Now, looking back over the last 5 years, I want people to understand how many people have been arrested because Libby took the time to take a video of the creep that was following them. That says a lot. I mean, these girls, both of them actually, they're heroes, okay? Tragically, they're no longer with us, but they are definitely heroes. And how many kids' lives are going to be saved because of them? And so, rather than blaming the police and saying they're allowing a sex predator to victimize more children, you have to look at it from an investigative perspective. Now, I know most of the public doesn't have an understanding of what that entails, but let me just tell you, they crawled up Kegan Kline's butt with a microscope and then some, and he couldn't fart without them knowing it. Okay, so we're going to set that aside for now. I also want to talk about, now Belinda and I had mentioned this before with the murders of Elizabeth Collins and Lyric Cook. The day they were taken and killed was July 13th, 2012. So 7/13/12. Now, Abby and Libby were taken 2/13/2017. So I'm going to illustrate this in an image, but if you look at the dates forward and backward, they mirror, okay? Not only that, and I'm going to show this in photos, but at the crime scenes of Elizabeth and Lyric was set up. I'm not going to show anything graphic. I'm just going to show basic photos, but the crime scenes and the signatures were set up in very similar manners. Where the girls were taken, both sets of girls, where they were taken and murdered was set up in very similar ways. Both sets of girls were taken from an area, taken across the creek, and then the murders took place. So I am going to show that specifically because I believe it's a signature. And if these are in fact persons making, not just child pornography, but snuff films, that's a very specific type of predator. Now, this individual who's making these videos talking about the police, saying, well, we don't think it can be, I don't think it's Chadwell, because he said no. If he's facing a death penalty, what else would he say? Criminals lie, okay? They lie. They'll say, oh, I didn't do it. Yes, it's true. Okay, so tomorrow he's facing 160 years in jail for the crime that he committed against, that Brian Chadwell committed against this little 9-year-old girl. That's true. But just because you ask a criminal, especially a killer, especially one that would have his own dog attack a 9-year-old, it takes a very sick individual for that kind of depravity. And I don't believe it was his first time doing it. This Chadwell was very prepared. And I'm not going to go into detail of that, but he was prepared. And it may have been an impulsive grab of this 9-year-old girl. Thank God she's alive, but in saying that, that is precisely the type of person who would commit something against, Abby and Libby or Elizabeth and Lyric. Now, the police haven't come out and said much about Kegan Kline, but he also fits the bill. And to me, it's shocking how many people how many people actually can fit the profile in the murders of these two sets of girls. But I, for one, do not believe that the police, no, they did not allow this man to continue to abuse anyone. And in fact, they learned probably a whole lot of information, not just from his devices, but from his contacts, his behavior, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, again, I'm going to show images of just nothing graphic, just, I don't have any of the graphic crime scene photos anyway, but just to illustrate, what we're talking about here and why Belinda and I talked about this a long time ago, but we believe that the Delphi murders and Evansdale murders are connected. And not just because of the dates that they were taken and the mirroring images of those dates and the possibility of satanic ritual. It's not just because of that. It's because of where they were taken, how they were taken, etc. There are multiple reasons, but anyway, I'm gonna share those. They're out in the public anyway, so but if you look at the image of both cases, the trees were cut off or broken off, and they were set up in very specific ways. Now, both girls were taken from a park, a set of trails, or I'm sorry, taken from trails. Elizabeth and Lyric were taken to Seven Bridges Park in Bremer County, Iowa, which was, I'm guessing, about, 10 to 14 miles up the road from where they actually disappeared. And Abby and Libby were taken from the trails, but both sets of girls were taken, a specific route through the woods, across the creek, and then the other side of the creek. and both crime scenes contain what appears to me as a common signature. So I'll be back shortly. Okay, so we're going to share the screen. I'm going to share my screen with you just so I can show you what I see. Now, you see these pictures right here? You see how this wood's laid out? Very specific. This one's bent over, this one's bent over. This one is kind of, you know, these pieces of wood are laid out in a very specific way. Okay, so again, if you're looking at the crime scene in Delphi, you can't actually see it in this photo, but it's laid out in a very specific way. Okay, so here's the Seven Bridges County Park in Bremer County, Iowa. Now, the killer came along this road and then came back by this farm somewhere back in here and took the girls across this creek, and they were found, Elizabeth Collins and Larry Cook were found on this side of the creek. Okay, so, and this is the other side of the creek at Seven Bridges Park. And as you can see, these are put up in a very specific way. This is on the park side of the creek, and then you go across the creek. And okay, so the killer took the girls around this way and then across, and then they're on this side of the creek. I'm sorry, that's my okay, so if you look, you've got different things right here. I'm not going to zoom in for anybody. If you want to look up these photos, you can Google it. I'm not gonna zoom in or get any closer than that, but there's some similarities there. And that's why, you know, I believe that it's the same killer, or killers. Now a lot of people say, well, you know, a serial killer doesn't work with anybody else. Well, when you're talking about child trafficking and child pornography, it's a little bit different. Still, the most grotesque and unimaginable things can happen, but at the same time, it's very different. One case, for example, where a group of men took a girl, was Holly Bobo. You know, they knew who she was, and they saw her at a town event, and they made a plan to go and get her. And, you know, unfortunately, she was murdered. But in these two sets of cases with Elizabeth Collins and Lyric Cook, and then Abby Williams and Liberty German, there are a lot of similarities. And, you know, I'm sure the public is becoming aware of these similarities. Anyway, before you start getting back to our other topic, before you start blaming the police and saying they're allowing a predator to continue to molest somebody, that's not true. Okay, and they said one day they look forward to sharing what they know. Now think about that for a minute. Okay, they were watching this guy like a hawk, I promise you. I'm sure they have warrants on all his devices as well, and they were not going to allow him to physically hurt or harm anyone. Did they allow him to continue in his behavior? Probably. Not go out and hurt anyone, but they probably allowed him to continue what he was doing at home. But let me make this clear, okay? They served a warrant on him February 25th, 2017. So Kegan Kline was aware that he was being watched. If he did anything stupid, then that's on him. Okay? But I promise you, they're not allowing this man to go out and hurt anybody, to leave his residence or wherever he went. I'm sure they knew. That said, in looking at his devices, I am certain that they garnered a whole bunch of information on a lot of creeps out there. And by the grace of Libby and the courage that those girls had, they were able to help incarcerate a lot of people, and that makes them heroes. Anyway, that's all I have for tonight. You know, hopefully we'll get some answers soon, and hopefully they'll find the person responsible. Sketch number 2. Pay attention. Thank you and have a good night.